Welcome to another episode of Well-Adjusted Mama. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Brayton, and today's special guest is Patrick Murray of New Motive Hypnosis, and he'll be speaking on using hypnosis for an empowered birth and beyond. Patrick J. Murray is the founder of New Motive Hypnosis, and he's a certified hypnotist and sports mental performance coach through the American Board of Hypnotherapy, as well as a graduate of the Paradox Agency for Hypnosis. A member of the International Hypnosis Federation and the International Association of Counselors and Therapists, Patrick is also an exercise specialist at Robert Wood Johnson Rahway Fitness and Wellness Center, where he is a specialist in rehabilitation training in a cancer, diabetes, and cardiac program. Looking for more ways to help his clients, Patrick discovered hypnosis, which he uses to improve the mental performance of a wide variety of clients, including professional and high school athletes, moms-to-be, cancer patients, business professionals, and anyone else who is looking to improve the mental aspect of their lives. For more information, you can find him on his website at newmotivehypnosis.com. Welcome, Patrick.
Thanks for having me.
So excited to have you on the show. And I'm going to share with our listeners that we have a special connection because you, part of your hypnosis work is out of my practice in Hoboken, New Jersey. So it's just been a pleasure for me to have you in my office and offering this really valuable service to my pregnant patients. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yes. Wonderful. So some of our listeners may be completely new to hypnosis and not really know anything about it. So just walk us through the basics and explaining what hypnosis is.
Okay, well, hypnosis really could be best described as a tailored meditation session. It is a very deep state of relaxation and concentration, very similar to a group meditation or yoga meditation that any individual has done before. Even if you've practiced any breathing techniques or tapping techniques, you are considered to be in the hypnosis state. So a lot of us have actually been in the hypnosis state, just not understanding what the actual state is. And the state of hypnosis is a very powerful state. Within the state, we have the ability to tap into our subconscious mind, and our subconscious mind controls our perceptions, our beliefs. If I could give you an image of what it would be, it's similar to an iceberg. We see an iceberg, we see a small portion of that iceberg above the water, and a majority of it is below the water. And that's how we live our lives daily. We live our lives in the subconscious state of mind. And through hypnosis, we have the ability to tap into our subconscious and program it. When we practice self-meditation or any self-hypnosis for the present moment, it's very beneficial, but the difference between working with a hypnotist compared to just practicing self-hypnosis and meditation is that working with the hypnotist, you are able to program for the future. And that's one of the coolest parts about hypnosis is that I have the ability to program events, whether it's for moms-to-be, athletes, performers, have the ability to program events for these individuals exactly how they want to perform these events, and it hasn't been performed yet. So just taking the individuals through this deep level of meditation, of relaxation, you're able to tap into the subconscious part of your mind, reprogram it, and literally program for events that have not occurred yet.
Mm-hmm. So powerful. I mean, I'm a huge advocate of meditation, and it's a practice that I think everyone can benefit from. But to your point, this is even some deeper work because a person is working with a hypnotist to help guide them through the process. And there's things that I think sometimes subconsciously we tend to block on our own or not have an awareness of where our blocks may be. And that's where it's wonderful to work with a professional like a hypnotherapist to help remove those blocks and like you said, program this future event. So let's talk about that specifically for a pregnant woman. What would that future event that you help program look like?
It would be, for example, I worked with an individual yesterday, and her desired goal was to really have a perfect birth, perfect childbirth, without any epidurals, really just the natural way. And as you know,
natural, yep, unmedicated.
That's how it should be. So in order to experience this performance, I would call it, it needs to be envisioned in a deep meditative state. And an example, as I'm giving you, would be I'm just taking this individual through this entire performance. The events leading up to the actual birth, when they enter the hospital, while they're in the hospital, while they're surrounded by the anesthesiologists and even some of the physicians who sometimes could be pushy. So it's important that these individuals are visualizing these events before they occur. But the biggest importance of this is that it's the whole entire process, not only entering the hospital, but also the events prior, even while they're driving to the hospital, if they find themselves in a situation where they actually have to drive themselves to the hospital, that's something they want to envision as well. So by envisioning all this, you are pretty much setting yourself up for the exact performance that you envision within the hypnosis state. So when these events occur, these are the feelings that they will feel, that you will feel within this event.
Right. And so it sounds like by having literally your mind walk you through that action of that event, like let's say getting to your birth location and actually going through the birth process, the labor and the delivery, in your mind during your pregnancy, when that time comes, it makes it easier for your body to know what to do. It makes it easier for your conscious mind to make choices that are in alignment with the decisions that you made during your pregnancy, like regarding your birth plan.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. And that's just so valuable because, labor can become chaotic, like you mentioned, even transporting if you're not having a home birth and you're transporting to a birth center or hospital, there can be some chaos created, especially living in the New York City area. If a woman's driving through the Lincoln Tunnel, for example, while she's in labor, this can create some stress. So having these tools to use during that process can be so powerful.
Yes, and that is another area where I equip my clients with trigger responses that are necessary within these situations.
Yeah. Can you explain that a little bit further?
So, a lot of individuals will read books on, let's say, self-meditation for childbirth, ways to relax during labor. It's great to read these books and gain knowledge from this, but it's much more beneficial when you are working with a hypnotherapist because you have the ability to subconsciously program these trigger responses. So not only will I run my clients through the actual birthing experience and the steps leading up to the childbirth, but it's actually programming these responses in. So it could be something as simple as a deep inhale, connecting the thumb and index finger together, visualizing a color, and you instantly trigger a feeling of just very deep relaxation. And that would just be an example. But as I run my patients through this procedure, it's being programmed into the subconscious mind, so it is actually there for them. So the power of that connection would be much more powerful than if they were just to read a book on it in a conscious state.
So cool. So, I think that to your point, a lot of women during pregnancy do read books, and there's even, like hypnobirthing, hypnobabies programs that are available like an audio, for example, to listen to. I think all those products are valuable, but, really the optimal way is to receive coaching that's individualized and specific for you and your needs and for your desires. And every woman has a different idea of what her perfect birth looks like. So that's what's beautiful about working with a hypnotist, is it's about creating your perfect birth, so to speak, as opposed to someone else's, and just being very clear what that looks like and then helping that come into fruition.
Yes.
So I was hoping that you could, I love asking my guests, a little bit about their personal story of why they chose to go in this direction of doing the work that they do. So, can you tell us a little bit about why you chose this profession as a hypnotist and working with women during pregnancy?
Okay, well, as well as being a hypnotist, I'm also a exercise specialist, and as you mentioned, I work part-time for Robert Wood Johnson Hospital. I work in the cardiac rehab and cancer and diabetes program. And prior to hypnosis, I was just an exercise specialist. And being involved in these programs...
Which is like a personal trainer? Is that what that means?
Personal trainer, okay. Yeah. And being involved in programs where I'm working with diabetics, where I was working with diabetics and still do work with diabetics, really just noticing that mental roadblock. And I do have some background in sports psychology, and hypnosis always was intriguing. It was just one of those things that I knew about it, but I never experienced it. Always wanted to learn it, and I really started to focus in on it more when I noticed that I just could not get through to a lot of my clients as far as the mental aspect. As they were making their progression with exercise, it was always a step back, not making the appropriate food, not working out on their own. And, I was motivating them and consciously motivating them as much as I could, but I really sensed that there was something beyond that, that there had to really tap into an area which I knew was the subconscious, where they could actually make these changes that are needed. And ironically, I was training for a race that I signed up for. It was actually a 200-mile team race. And at the time, I believed that I was not a runner. And I had this perception of being a runner, and I was an athlete my whole life. And as I was training for this race, with the mindset that I was not a runner, I bumped into a hypnotist at a local coffee shop, and just talked to him. He talked about what he did. I scheduled a session with him, scheduled 2 more sessions after that first session, and I found out that he was actually also a teacher, a certified teacher with some of the top organizations in the country. And just after the 2 or 3 sessions I had with him, I had a whole new mindset about not only running, me being a runner, but also just a much clearer, more focused, more lively mindset. And experiencing hypnosis is what immediately brought me into actually taking the steps to learn it. So after I did do the sessions with him, I ended up studying with him. And he was my teacher, my coach. I graduated from his school, and I also ended up taking a certification with the American Board of Hypnotherapy, which is one of the top certification organizations in the country. And that was about 4.5 years ago. And since then, I've established more than one location and have helped numerous amounts of people. And it's been a great experience, and I'm very grateful for the ability to change so many people's lives.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful story. I think that, in our life we are presented with opportunities like the one that you got in that coffee shop, and you took action. You made that decision, like, this is what I need to do for myself. Number one, receiving that hypnotherapy as a client, and from that, it's inspired this whole new career and a way for you to impact the people that you're working with at a deeper level.
Yes.
Yeah, very cool. And so you've been doing this work, and then since joining, working in my office space in October of 2014, that's when you've really started to develop the work you do with pregnant women, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So you shared a little bit about how you can work with a woman during her pregnancy in preparing for labor and delivery and the birth. What about after the baby is born? How can you help a woman at that point in her life, postpartum?
Well, again, a lot of it goes back to the individual's goals and needs. Everyone's different. Everyone had a lifestyle that was different than the other person prior to birth. So they could have been working in Manhattan, or they could have been running a home business, and they had to take off because of the birth. So a lot of what I work with is the transition of the lifestyle they are going to need to be accustomed to. Some individuals, if it's their second or third birth, it's very easy for the mother to adjust to that because they've had the experience of it already. If it is someone who it's their first childbirth, it might be a little bit stressful for them to adjust to the previous lifestyle they had prior to birth. So again, going back to the mental rehearsal, I really program the simplicity and the relaxation and also the deep connection of having this child in their life. And that's, again, the natural way, and that's how it should be. And it just makes the transition much easier for them to, again, envision the steps that are ahead. And it also could be any weight that they've put on. This could happen sometimes. So I work with getting the mothers back into an exercise regimen, back into an eating regimen that is appropriate, something they have possibly done before. So a lot of it is that just smooth transition back into a lifestyle where they are going to have their first child or another child. And for other mothers, it could be a negative experience after a C-section. You know, if I was not able to work with the mother prior to the birth, and they are coming to me after because of postpartum depression, I guide my clients into a state where they're in control of this and really just pushing that negative experience aside and making sure that they are grounded and present within their present life.
You know, can you just maybe further elaborate, because that's such a valuable point. Like, let's say there was a traumatic birth, whether it was surgical or vaginal. If the mother did not have that birth of her dreams, if it was a traumatic experience for her, she could potentially have PTSD, and she also potentially could have postpartum depression, possibly one or both. Going from, like, at that place, you know, you mentioned pushing that experience aside. Can you, like, elaborate, like, if it wasn't that ideal birth that she had, how can hypnosis help support her and healing from that experience?
One of the things I do utilize is actually reprogramming past events as well. So this is very crucial for anyone. You know, if you put it in the perspective of an athlete. If they had a bad performance, they want to think of that bad performance in a different way so it doesn't affect their future performances. So it's similar to a mother. You know, if they had a C-section and this is causing that depression in their current life, through hypnosis, I had the ability to almost reprogram that event as if that birth was exactly the way they wanted it to. Again, going back to the subconscious really controls your reality. So even though the birth might not have gone that way, if you meditate to that birth the way you wanted it to go, so as you reprogram it, it will be stored in your subconscious mind as a new belief. So it's almost just reprogramming a past performance that you had, and giving a new perception of that birth, where it's not negative anymore, where those negative attachments are now broken completely. And it's also going beyond that and envisioning the steps you are going to take in the future. Detachment from the negativity, more peace, more relaxation, and this gives the mothers a better sense of where they are and also a better connection of the overall birthing experience for a future birth, for future childbirth.
Right. So that's so cool to see, like, if there was trauma, releasing that, so to speak, so that it's not being stored, which can also create, health issues and dis-ease within the body when these negative emotional experiences are held on to. And I have seen that actually interfere with a family conceiving again because there was so much fear from the mother of not wanting to experience birth trauma again. So that's powerful. And what if also a mother perhaps had a challenging childhood with her own relationship with her mother, and how that could potentially impact her when she's now becoming a mother herself? How can hypnosis, help with something like that?
Again, that would be dictated by the subconscious. I keep bringing the subconscious mind up, but that is a big part of it. And it can be very beneficial for that, mainly because that is just one connection that they are holding to one specific area of their life. So there are parts of them that realize that, of the individual that realize that that is not them, that they are possibly not like their mother or they're not like their father. And they need that connection to be broken on a subconscious level. So in that case, it wouldn't be so much going back to that time and reperforming that event. It will be just changing the perception of that belief of when they were a child. Almost accepting it, but realizing that this is who they are as a person. And take notice of the areas of your life where you hold this feeling of connection, of leadership, of care. And as they channel in that energy to the traits that they truly hold and the type of leader they are possibly within their family and the type of mother they are with their current child, it's usually very easy to bring that connection in. And once that connection is brought subconsciously, that's how they will feel. That's how they will perceive that situation.
Yeah, and I really, truly believe that this is the way that we work. One thing that I'm recognizing that not maybe every listener understands the difference between the conscious and subconscious mind. So do you also mind spending a little time kind of discussing the two and how they work?
Well, one of the things I would like to bring into it also is something called the critical factor. So we have our subconscious, as I mentioned, and we have something called the critical factor, which judges information that is given to us sometimes in a conscious state. So, for example, if I were to sit down with a mom-to-be and I just discussed a lot of the up-and-coming situations, possibly of what she could do in the situation, how she could perform, even just going over breathing techniques, but I do not have them in a meditative state. The critical factor comes into play. And the critical factor is our security guard of our mind in a conscious state. So in a conscious state, we're more prone to judging the information that is given to us, unless you've established with a significant bond with someone. So, for example, it's they have a chiropractor, they have a physician, and they have a very good bond with this individual. The information can be obtained and usually does enter the subconscious mind. But if it is just someone they have just met or they watch a video, a motivational video, a lot of that information is not entering the subconscious mind. So it is actually judged by the critical factor. It's almost like it's blocked. And once we enter that deep state of relaxation, a deep state of hypnosis, the critical factor is pushed aside. It's no longer judging the information that's given to you. So in the conscious state, and oftentimes we will judge the information. When we're in the deep state of meditation, these suggestions just enter the subconscious. So consciously you're still aware, consciously you're still taking in the suggestion, but there is no more critical factor to judge the information that is there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I guess I don't know if that's still clear about what the difference is between the conscious and subconscious mind. Do you mind going a little bit deeper regarding that?
Perspective, the conscious mind is 10% compared to the subconscious, which is 90%. So
Thank you.
There we go. I should have said that in the beginning. So again, 10% compared to 90. So the conscious mind is a very small amount of our decisions. So when we are just walking around in our daily life, we think that we're making conscious decisions, and we are somewhat, but again, it's only 10%. The majority of those decisions are based off of what is stored in our subconscious mind. So again, going back to suggestions that are given to us, that's why it's more powerful in the meditative state, because you're entering the subconscious mind. So putting them in a perspective of how they're different, the conscious mind is a much smaller portion of our belief system, of our perception.
Right. So that's really one of the huge values of doing hypnosis, is that direct access to the subconscious mind that is driving 90% plus of the show. So, an example would be you get in your car every day, you drive, the same route every day to your office. That's you in autopilot using your subconscious mind to get you from one place to the other. There's not a lot of conscious thinking going on. And this has happened to me. It's probably happened to everyone listening. One day, you're supposed to go to a different place, and you get in your car and you drive the same route that you drive every day, and then you're like, oh, crap, that's not where I'm going today. And so that's like kind of one, real example of the difference between the conscious and subconscious mind. And what I've learned over the years is that because our subconscious mind is controlling so many of the thoughts that we make on a daily basis, and that subconscious mind is programmed during our early childhood, occasionally, based on the type of childhood we had, there's programming that is not serving us anymore, so to speak, as an adult, but yet our subconscious mind is still making those choices. So if you find yourself blocked in a certain area of your life, that's where something like hypnosis can be so powerful in kind of recognizing where that block is and removing it. Because a lot of times we may not even recognize why it's there and what created it in the first place, and that's the power of doing this type of work.
Yes, and another powerful aspect is our movement as well, and how we breathe, our perception of our body, how we use our muscles, how we use, how we function. That is also somewhat dictated by the subconscious as well. And working with athletes, it's more in depth of that type of teaching, but the awareness of the body could be dictated by a negative performance they've had as a child. And that pattern could literally stay with them for a lifetime. So in ways I also address the subconscious mind in terms of the patterns and the movements and the breathing, utilizing breathing the appropriate way during childbirth, which is very crucial, and more recognition of the muscles you feel during breathing, the response you get from breathing. And oftentimes, a lot of us just breathe and we're not even breathing the appropriate way. So that's another pattern that we've developed that needs to be changed also on a subconscious level.
Mm-hmm. Right. I was hoping that you could share one of the stories of how you've helped a woman with hypnosis during her pregnancy and the outcome that she had based on the hypnosis.
Okay. One of the clients I work with, her name was Leah, and she had a C-section in, I believe, 2012, and she was preparing for a VBAC. And her first C-section was a very traumatic experience for her. As you know, sometimes doctors might rush the C-section, and in her case, this is what occurred. Not only was the C-section rushed, but she also had issues with the anesthesiologist and some of the nurses as well. So this was a pretty traumatic experience for her. Not only was it a tough experience, but it also was affecting her bond with her current child, who was a few years old at the time. So she came in just really wanting to reconnect with her current child. She still held that connection, but because of this traumatic experience, there was some subconscious disconnections that needed to be removed. So when I worked with her, it was preparing for the VBAC, and pretty much a lot of what I went over. I had her envision the entire experience, even leading up to welcoming her baby, actually delivering and giving birth, as well as programming the techniques that I went over as well. And she used this a lot during her childbirth, and she was very surprised at the response she got from it. She was using it on the car ride there, when she entered the hospital, and she was even confronted with some of the same nurses and doctors she saw her previous birth, and her response was much different this time, because I allowed her to envision that experience again, where she might see these same people, these same individuals, where she's holding a negative connection, and having her envision this negative connection being broken and feeling relaxed around the same anesthesiologist or nurse or physician allows her to experience that when she delivered. So she utilized a lot of the techniques we went over that were very quick but effective trigger responses, and she was prepared for the entire event. She was very responsive of the suggestions, and she had a great experience. She mentioned many times that she couldn't have created the image of that event without me. I guided her. It was more her than me, but it was just great to experience that. And that was not one of the first clients I worked with this specific goal, but it was one that stands out the most for me. It was very
that is really such a cool story. And VBACs are becoming more and more popular, and it's just another way for a woman to feel empowered as she's preparing for a VBAC to create a different story for the second or third birth. Can you explain a little bit further what the trigger response is that you were mentioning, the tools that you work with, that you teach your clients?
Yes. So one of the things that I do is I do not I don't give the same trigger technique to each individual. I like to see which one works best for them, and this is why it's important that there's more than one session that we need, just to get a feel for what they respond to best. And again, going back to books, that could be very beneficial. Sometimes, those techniques don't work as well with another individual. So it's really just finding what works best for them. And one of the techniques that worked very well for her was envisioning a golden light surround her. And each time she inhaled and exhaled, which was 3 times, after each exhale, she said the word peace. Just the word peace. And connected her thumb and index finger together. So she had the vision of the golden light, she had the word, and she also had the connection of feeling. And when you establish the feelings, the images, and the word at the same time, it's a much more powerful response than just using a visual image. So that's another, if someone does want to practice any meditation, it would be best that you bring those three together, those three associations together, because it's most powerful. And that was the one that worked best for her. And she actually found that, I guided her, but she found that on her own. That was the color that resonated most for her. And using that response, she brought in the same feeling each time. So it worked very well for her. And she continues to actually use that trigger response in other situations when her kids stress her out.
Mhm. Yeah, it's powerful, and to your point, it can be used under any stressful circumstances, not just for birth.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So that's just like one example of a trigger response. And when a hypnotherapist is working with a client, ideally they will help that person discover what the best trigger response is for them. Like literally, it's like a tool in your tool bag of self-empowerment, so that you have some action step that you can use when you are feeling stressed and you feel, you need to feel empowered.
Yes.
Cool. So like wrapping up, if a woman does not live in the Hoboken area, how can she find a certified hypnotist in her area?
Well, one of the first things to look at is where they're certified, who they're certified by, and a lot of the top organizations, which are the International Association of Counselors and Therapists, the American Board of Hypnotherapy, and also the National Guild of Hypnotists. I'll give you those websites in a little bit. They will actually have a list of any certified hypnotists in the state of New Jersey or your specific area when you go on the website. So one of the things to look at is also if they are certified in any type of linguistic programming techniques, if they have a background in linguistic programming. And a lot of the trigger response techniques are somewhat linguistic programming. So it's very important that they have not so much a certification is, but the background in linguistic programming, trigger responses, and connection. So that's something I would ask if you do call them up and look for the hypnotist. Also, if they have any type of hypnobirthing certification or any hypnosis for childbirth certification, that would be very good. The best way would just be to also call them and see if you have rapport with them. That's also very crucial. Word of mouth works well, but if you feel you haven't met the person and you haven't established that rapport, then they might not be the best hypnotist to work with. So it's important that you speak to them, you get a better understanding if you have that connection. And another way is to just stay within your health network, whether it's your chiropractor, your primary care physician, your physical therapist, anyone they would recommend that would be suitable to work with you. That would be the first step I would take. And let me just give you the websites for the organizations. The International Association of Counselors and Therapists, the website is IACT.org. And the American Board of Hypnotherapy's website is the ABH/ABNLP.com. And the National Guild of Hypnotherapy is NGH.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Patrick. Those were wonderful resources for our listeners because, once again, this is about an awareness that having a hypnotherapist on your team as you're preparing for birth is so powerful, and I think it's really underutilized. And so just bringing in awareness that this is a really great practitioner to help support you in creating that birth of your dreams, and especially if there was any previous birth trauma, helping you heal from the past so that you can move forward towards that birth that you're wanting to create. Okay, any last thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, just one of the things I wanted to let everybody know is that I will be doing group meditations, and it's offered to the public at no cost. And this is actually at CarePoint's family wellness centers that they just opened up. There was one in Hoboken on Hudson Street, and there's also one in Edgewater on River Road. I'm going to be holding a group meditation at the location in Hoboken the second Wednesday of every month, and that is at 6:30 p.m. And then the location in Edgewater, I'll be holding a group meditation the last Tuesday of every month. And if you go on the website, it's actually called pamperedpregnancy.com. That's the organization affiliated with the hospital. And you could actually sign up on the website.
And you have this information on your website as well?
I do not have the information currently on my website, but I do have it on my Facebook page. And also, if anyone wants to reach out to get more information about this group meditation, my email address is newmotivehypnosis@gmail.com.
Awesome. So that's probably the best way for people to reach you is at your email, newmotivehypnosis@gmail.com, and they can get more information about you and your classes, or if they have any further questions about hypnosis. So once again, thank you so much for coming on today. This was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.